Hey, Matthew Swinnerton here from Santa Cruz Works, and welcome to the Santa Cruz Works Flash Tours that we're doing every single week. Last week we did Idea Fab Lab. Today we are doing Humble Sea Brewery, and then we have a couple other ones like Annie Glass and Parallel Flights that we're doing in the upcoming weeks, plus many more. So again, thank you so much for joining. I am here with a beer icon of Santa Cruz, Frank Scott Kruger. How you doing?
I don't know about an icon. I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me. This is super cool to share.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here, but I feel like I haven't been here in a while because I usually just order out. So it's actually nice to be in here. I know so much about Humble Sea Brewery because we're friends, and I've seen your progression. But let's talk a little bit so our viewers know, like, what was the humble beginnings of Humble Sea Brewery? How did it start out?
Yeah. So we started out about 5 years ago, a little bit more actually, 2015-ish. And we started with very little capital, $10,000. So me and my two partners, Nick and Taylor, we put together basically $3,500 each. Enough to do some legal paperwork and then start going on our alcohol beverage control paperwork. And obviously, you start with that little amount of capital, it's going to be slow. So it took us about 2 years to build up to opening this location. Originally, we started out of our grandma's barn up in Ben Lomond, which is kind of a fun little system, but it was a commercial brewery through a residential barn. We've been open here for about 3.5 years on the west side of Santa Cruz. I think some of you may know us.
A couple of people might know of you.
Yeah, I don't know who's tuned in, so I'm just guessing.
No, Humble Sea has definitely made such a big impact on the Santa Cruz community. But I know I feel like I've heard of some people say, like, I've never actually been a beer drinker until Humble Sea. Sorry, that's me. But there's many other ones. But Santa Cruz has a long history of great brewers. Santa Cruz Mountain Brewery, Discretion, and we have such a great community. And so adding you to the mix, I think, was just such a great fit for sure. So Frank, we don't have to say 2020 has been a crazy year. in March or so, the lockdown happened. How did you? I don't want to use the word pivot because I feel like that's overdone, but
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm trying to be crazy here.
No pivots.
Yeah. How did you adjust? Yeah, your business, because you did a major adjustment. Still making great beer, like the foundation is there. But what did you do differently during this year?
Yeah, so I mean, we did a couple things. The first kind of concern was our team, our people. We feel like we have an absolutely ridiculously talented team of brewers and people in front of house. And we just wanted to make sure that everyone we could keep during that time, that we were 100% taken care of. That was our number one concern because, as we all know, not making as much money sucks, but losing staff costs a lot more money than anything else. And then after that, we pivoted, I guess you could say, to an e-commerce business. And we've always been sell beer direct to the consumer. The majority of our sales are made in our tap room. And we actually just totally switched that up. And within a weekend, after the lockdown, me and then Lee, who's head of marketing, we stayed up all night, pretty much all weekend. And we created an e-commerce experience that was very janky, but we flipped it on and the sales were pretty bonkers. And so that kept us afloat for the first several months while we were dialing in that e-commerce system.
So is it safe to say, though, that your business has actually gone quite a bit up, even though the tap room had its time where it had to close and had its ebb and flow there?
Yeah, so we were kind of forced into it. Like, this idea of like becoming an e-commerce business and platform was something that was sort of on our list, but it actually didn't make our list of priorities for 2020. So we were like, cool, next year we'll start to figure that out. Obviously that all changed. So yeah, our e-commerce sales, especially in the first couple of months of COVID, our shipping sales, we call them, were higher than our taproom sales ever were at that time of the year. And then we kept our taproom open for to-go only, so people could order online and then pick up, kind of pre-order, that kind of thing. And those two together, in the combination of us canning and having, like a better setup for actually brewing and packaging, our sales were up more than the previous year and more than we projected actually for 2020.
Well, congratulations. I think the first thing is you have great beer and people wanted to drink it. And so, thank you so much for altering that so we can all partake. Let's go outside though. Let's go outside. Let's see where you actually brew the beer. So this is a inside scoop here, and then we're gonna talk about the canning a little bit. So let's take a quick walk out there.
Yeah, and we're kind of lucky. Today's like a relatively calm day because PG&E's upgrading our power. So it's pretty quiet. Normally it's very loud around here, so it's kind of a decent day to give this tour.
Still a little loud. It's nothing here.
Yeah. I mean, when you come here, normally there's not only the sound of machinery and hoses 24/7, but there's also just blasting techno. So the rest of our staff are over in our other facility on Ingalls, and they're bottling a couple beers and then some shipping.
Okay, so we have all the doors open. Can you explain a little bit about this setup here?
Yeah, for sure. So over on the far right, we've got our original brew house. We've added to it over time, but that's the original size. We've added an extra kettle so that we can push beer through faster. And then we started with 4 10-barrel tanks and 1 20-barrel tank. And then we've slowly added bigger tanks. So you can see this big one in front, that's a 30, couple 20s. And then during COVID, one of the things that some of this we planned for, and you could say that we like adapted and pivoted, but some of it was just dumb luck. One of the things we were planning for an expansion for about a year moving up to COVID, and we got lucky that everything was shipped and was pretty much ready to come online when COVID hit. And what that means is we could make more beer. We've always been supply constrained with our beer, and we still are, but we were able to double our production the first month of COVID. So it was dumb luck. So I'll show you the next cellar. So yeah, so as you can see, or maybe you can't see because I don't know what this looks like, but these tanks are roughly 4 times the size of our original tanks. So we got 40-barrel tanks all the way around the room, and then 20-barrel horizontal lagering tanks. So this room alone brews, I don't want to do quick math, but it's probably easily twice to maybe 4 times what that room can brew.
Wow.
Just because fermenting space is kind of the primary bottleneck for breweries. So this all came online in COVID and was an absolute lifesaver.
So compare this to actually when you're at grandma's carport. How much could you brew when you were in that carport?
Yeah, that's actually really good. So I'll walk back, but Doug, you see this keg back here? So this keg, so our original brewing system was brewing 2 of those kegs at a time. And now one of these tanks fits 80 kegs. So it's a pretty big difference. And honestly, economies of scale work really well with beer. There's a certain point where you're just shooting yourself in the foot if you're not a certain size, because it's almost impossible to stay open.
So how long does it take to actually make to get from when you start it to actually where someone can actually have a drink? How long is that process?
Depends on the style, but ales, so like IPAs, which is what we brew a lot of foggy IPAs and some West Coast IPAs. Ales are roughly 2 weeks. Lagers, so like a Pilsner or any other type of lager that you've had, a light lager, Bud Light's a lager, for example. That takes roughly 6 weeks. And then we do spirit barrel-aged beers, so whiskey, bourbon barrel-aged stouts. Those are anywhere from 1 to 2 years, and same with our sours. So sours are 1 to 2 years.
And those are in the barrel facility over there, right?
Yeah, so we've got spirit barrels in this building, and then we've got wine barrels in the facility over on Ingalls Street.
Okay, so before 2020 happened, you were actually doing a little bit of canning, right? And how are you doing that?
Yeah, so we had a mobile canning company. Yeah. And before COVID hit, they were canning once every 2 weeks. They were coming here from Sacramento, which is their home base, and canning once every 2 weeks. It was expensive, and we were working on their schedule. Then when COVID hit, we needed cans as fast as possible. So small pack is what we call it, small packaging. So we scheduled them for once a week, and it was really hard to get their time. So what was super lucky is we had a canning line coming that we ordered a year ago, and it actually was scheduled to show up the day that we had the shutdown. So that got delayed a full month. But a month into COVID, as we all know, is not that big of a deal because it's probably going to go on for another 85 years.
This is March like 249. Right
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you started your own actual, canning facility, label.
Yeah.
Let's go look at that.
Let's check it out. So it is a little dark in here because there's no power to this side of the building right now as PG&E works on the other side. But yeah, this is essentially what we call our packaging hall. So Doug, I don't know how far you want to go in here, but this will give you a view. So basically we bring pallets of cans on this side, and this is called the D-Palletizer, and it breaks down the pallets, pushes and rinses cans down this, we call it twist rinse, and it twists it. It's so cool when it's live. It looks like a How It's Made episode. It's awesome. And then comes through here, 5-head filler, and we splurged on a nicer machine because it's just better for the beer. It's much better for actually aging the beer. So if someone doesn't drink their beer in the first minute or the first week or two that they get it, like it's going to be a much safer beer and better quality, less oxygen. So pushes through the canning line, gets labeled here, and then this table's kind of rotating, and then we pack out here, and we just got this cool all paper. There you go. I can show them right here. 4-pack rings that we're really stoked on because we use a lot of these, thousands and thousands a day. And, before it was just pure plastic. So that's a lot of plastic. As we all know, plastic never breaks down, and it's pretty sad.
Totally degradable. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's paper. So there's pros and cons to it. The pro is it doesn't completely ruin the planet. The con is it's not invincible. So once you pop open those cans, they're not really meant to like push back in. You can kind of force it, but it's kind of it's a one and done kind of thing.
This is often a little bit of a different topic, but when I look at this, I see all this amazing design. Now, you are a designer. I mean, that's where I think one of the big strengths of Humble Sea that you bring to the table. You get to have all of these these great can releases with your design. How does that feel? They're like to see your work out in the world thousands and thousands of times.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Like my background, as you know, is more on the tech side of design. So digital design, so designing websites, designing apps, brands, and I still do that with my design studio. But it's called Goodnight, yeah. But the problem that I was having about 5 or 6 years ago when we started this thing is that designing an app is amazing. And a lot of times, I used to do a lot of work for Spotify or these companies that have a lot of users. You don't have any contact with the users. You have no idea what they're doing with the app besides like these little numbers of like they stay X amount of time on there. So I was really itching to design something that was part of a physical product. And beer's like quite an intimate product. If people buy it, then they have it in their hand, which is really cool. And then they store it in their homes, in their fridge, next to their produce and meals, which is like sort of a private space. And then people share it, and then they actually put the product in their body, which is like pretty intimate. So I'm super excited to be on the beer side of that design. It's been a blast, and it's just experimental grounds for making cool names and cool labels.
Okay, well, let's head back into the tap room. Let's do a few Q&A. So if you have a question, again, if you have a question, and I don't hit into a van, so then please put it in the Q&A. We're going to walk over to the tap room. As you see here, there's tents up and rainy. Okay, so let's move over so we can see the actual.
This is so meta.
Okay, so I'm going to okay, so we already have a question. Okay, so here's the first question, Frank.
Yeah.
See if, have you experimented with, how do you pronounce that?
Kveik.
Kveik yeast.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. Sounds like we have a beer nerd on our hands. So Kveik yeast is a Nordic Saison yeast or Nordic farmhouse yeast. From Northern Europe. And typically it was used for more traditional styles like a sati, not popular styles here. So don't worry if you don't know that style of beer. But it was kind of discovered in the last year or two that it actually is it produces a very juicy, estery, aromatic beer. So we're like, shoot, let's try it in an IPA. So we've done actually quite a few Kvike yeast IPAs. We call them like Nordic IPAs. And yeah, they're a blast. That yeast, it reacts very differently than like some of the other English ale or American ale yeast that we use. So it's hard to schedule it in. It actually ferments much faster than our other yeast. So it's kind of like a wild child. It ferments very hot. But yeah, we've done, I bet you 5 to 6 Kvike yeast IPAs. We don't have any scheduled now, but yeah, they're pretty sweet beers. It's a good question.
Well, thanks a lot. Yeah, good question, Mark. Next question. What challenge? I mean, it seemed like we talked about all these successes of 2020, even during tragedy. What challenges did you face during this time?
Yeah, I mean, I think one was like, as I mentioned before, like taking care of our team. We've had highs and lows, ups and downs with company morale through all this stuff, because our whole thing is like, staying emotionally close but socially distanced, and like it's hard to stay emotionally close when all of our meetings are digital and our shifts are very like spaced out. And if the team's not happy, like everything suffers. So we've had highs and lows there. The fires were the hardest point for us in 2020. I imagine lots of other people. We're originally from the San Lorenzo Valley, so lots of friends and family lost their homes. That was tough for us. Lots of our staff was displaced, so we made kind of a blanket policy that anyone who wanted to take time off, they could take it off and be paid for it. No questions asked. Had nothing to do with your vacation policy. We would just pay you, leave as long as you want. And we had a couple staff members who were just in really stressful situations at home and being displaced and trying to work full time. And a lot of people, a couple of staff members took advantage of it. Others were like, hey, this is helping me focus on something else. We shut down the tap room for roughly a week in our busiest month of the year, which is August. So that was a massive financial hit. So yeah, there's certainly been some struggles this year.
Oh, for sure. What about the struggle of actual, this is like a good struggle, but so you put online, I forgot what month it was, but kind of early on, got that we're actually going to be able to deliver, sell online. You got a ridiculous amount of orders.
Oh.
What domino effect did that place on you?
Yeah, that was horrible. It was good. It was a good horrible.
Yeah.
So as we saw the shutdown coming, basically, as we all know, the shutdown was like here today, gone tomorrow. So this kind of idea of, okay, we're selling our beer like normal, our business model is normal, and then the next day it completely changed. So, we stayed up all night in a matter of, I think it was 2 days. I want to say a weekend, 2 days, something like that. I don't remember what day of the week the shutdown happened, but we built our e-commerce website, but we built it on top of Squarespace, which is not great at handling mass orders. But it was what our site was built on. And we built it and we turned it on and said, hey, open to shipping all over California. 500 shipments, 500 orders came in the first 2 hours, and we turned it off because.
Wait, real fast, what did you think? What was your estimation of what you actually thought the orders would be? Were you like, okay, it's going to be like 100 orders or something, maybe?
No, there was no thinking. It was only reacting, and trying, basically, like seriously, like trying to get as much cash in our account as possible as soon as possible, because we had no idea what was going to happen. So there was no thinking, and I knew it was going to be a disaster.
So you got the 500.
So they all funneled in, and there was no back end built. So I connected the back end to a Google Sheet, and it was absolute garbage. And they all flooded in, and we didn't even have a shipping program dialed in. So we were trying to hand ship everything without the right packaging, and that was so painful. But it kept us afloat, and it gave the staff that we did keep, that we could keep, it gave everyone something to do, a little bit too much to do. And then over time, we were like, this system's horrible. We switched over to Shopify, and our e-commerce and shipping systems are much more dialed. Now we have like individual can shippers, and like the whole shipping line is incredible. Like we got a lot of help with trying to optimize the shipping line because we don't know anything about shipping. Like no one in the whole company. But we were lucky enough to have an investor who was optimizes manufacturing lines for Apple. Yeah, so we were like, dude, we're giving you a case of beer, get in here. And he helped us dial in our lines, and the shipping program has been incredible. And my partner Taylor's been leading that, and it's been really, really awesome.
Nice. I have a couple of questions, but I see a couple of questions are coming into the Q&A. I like this question. What Humble Sea beer are you most proud of, and why?
Oh yeah, that one's easy.
I guess first, is it Socks and Sandals?
No.
Close though.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So Penelope Pilsner.
Okay.
100%, like hands down, like, no questions asked. Reason being is because we do it in an extremely traditional German style. So we do decoction mashing, which is essentially what they used to do hundreds of years ago in Germany before malts were modified for brewing. So you have to do this manual, total pain in the ass process to modify the malts on your own. Now we don't have to do that with modern malting. The difference is we think that there's a little bit of a lack of complexity in modern Pilsners. And so we go through that entire decocting process, and then we naturally carbonate the beer, which is how they used to do it. And they still do it in Germany. And then we lager it for a full 6 weeks in horizontal tanks, which is better for lagering yeast. So yeah, hands down, Penelope Pilsner is the most beautiful beer we brew, in my opinion.
Okay, here's the next question. Mark is on fire in the Q&A, asking great questions. Have you ever considered selling a clone recipe of any of your beers?
No. I like the idea. We would just give it out. I don't know about selling a clone because we'd probably just give the recipe out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like,
I saw Nick around here. We should just ask him.
Yeah. Nick, yeah, I mean, like, 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 Mark, you sound like a home brewer. Like, home brewers are like our favorite, because I know, like, I just answered that question about, traditional decoction mash, and you probably know what I'm talking about, which is amazing. And so we want you to have our recipes and try it on your own, like, that's kind of, we're pretty open that way.
Okay, so we have 2 minutes left. What is the winter? I mean, okay, we're going to winter. I look outside. We had rain yesterday. It's gray outside. We don't know what's going to happen. What does winter look like for Humble Sea?
Yeah, winter's going to suck.
Wait, thank you everybody for tuning in.
That's it. There's no way it's going to suck. Yeah, so, I mean, a couple things. One is we've been doing local delivery since a couple months after kind of the shutdown happened. That hasn't really been a huge program for us. Mostly shipping outside of the county, and then within the county, people, if they have time, they want to come to the tap room. So we've been doing local delivery, and it's free, but hasn't really been a big hit. The reason why we keep doing it is because we foresee this winter being super tough, and on rainy days, as we're an outdoor brewery, we're super slow. So we wanted to keep that program going through winter and not have to kind of start a marketing program from scratch and say, hey, everyone, we're now doing this thing. We want people to be used to it, and we're hoping that it'll kind of take off during winter. That's one thing. And then we're also looking for other tap rooms. We've been searching for a year and a half now, and we have 2 locations that are getting pretty close. So I can't say really much more about it, but we're pretty excited about that. The reason why other tap rooms make sense is because to hit other markets and demographics and not have to ship everything is going to help, like, considerably, I hope.
Great. Okay, so help out the winter, help out local business. Where do people go to order Humble Sea Brewery?
Yeah, go to humblesea.com, and then at checkout, you can select whatever you want. You can get it shipped to your house, or you can get free delivery, or you can pick up in the tap room.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much, Frank. It's been such a educational experience here, but and we also thank you for being part of the community. It's great beer, and you're good stewards for small businesses in town. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and thanks for having us. The Santa Cruz Works has been amazing to us, and like same with Event Santa Cruz since the beginning. So thank you for having us and supporting.